Recently, Wizards of the Coast announced 5e players are getting a new player's handbook later this year. Along with the announcement, we got a look at some official art. And let's say opinions online were distinctly mixed. Now, we can and probably should have a discussion about what canonicity even means in a DIY game like D&D. But there's another issue at play here that I think flies under the radar. And that's the esoteric and ephemeral, but still very important topic of tone. And the question of what kind of game are you running? In this video, I'll be going over tone and how it affects the game, as well as the Dungeon Master's role as referee and storyteller, and how you can give your next campaign the kind of atmosphere you want it to have. But before we continue, if you'd like to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord. We have fantastic discussions about all aspects of Pathfinder 1E, including game mastering, world building, strategy guides, character builds, and much, much more. You'll find a link in the description of this video. Now then, let's start off by asking, what is tone? This is the general character and attitude of your game. Now, you may be wondering, why does tone matter? Well, it has a big impact on how your players experience the campaign. So it's important to ask yourself, what kind of tone are you going for? Maybe you're going for something intense, a non-stop adrenaline thrill ride that never lets up, with lots of fights and low health enemies to really rack up that body count. Maybe you're interested in humor, a series of comical misadventures where lovable misanthropes blunder their way to fortune and fame by embracing a failing forward mindset when it comes to roles. Maybe you're interested in something relaxed, where a few friends live life at a local heroes guild and do odd jobs and good turns here and there. The kind of game where you spend a lot of time role-playing with a few low-stress combat encounters. Or maybe you're interested in horror, where the dark truth slowly dawns that you can't save the world and you can barely save your own sanity. The kind of game with few combat encounters, but those combat encounters are very deadly, with lots of build-up beforehand. Or then again, maybe you're after something with an air of mystery, where the game is afoot and intrepid adventurer detectives have to uncover clues with frequent skill checks and really work to put the clues together. As the Dungeon Master, you have a chance to set the tone for the adventure your players will experience. The best advice I can give you is know what you want going in. You'll be better able to envision and describe the setting, be it a picturesque hamlet, dark city streets, or a wild and untamed frontier. You'll be able to help players create characters and backstories that fit within the kind of world and story you're creating. Finally, you'll be better able to plan encounters that fit within the story and themes. Now I'd like to talk about complexity and tone. The tone of your game is a symphony, and no symphony contains only one note. As an example, I'd like to look at one of my favorite FPS franchises that both as a series and a game-by-game basis has a more nuanced tone than you might think. I'm talking about Doom. You might think Doom's tone only consists of one very loud and angry note that goes something along the lines of kill, kill, kill. But as any veteran player can tell you, sometimes that adrenaline rush is coming from desperation, as you fight to get to a healing item, or switch to melee because you've run out of ammo. There's also a sense of loss that hangs over everything. After all, can you really call the events of any Doom game anything other than a Pyrrhic victory? The fantastic reboot of Doom in 2016 fully embraces the insane carnage and spirit of rip and tear. But there are moments of dark comedy and even poignancy with the Night Sentinels. On the other end of the tonal spectrum is the criminally underrated Doom 3, which is a full-on horror game, with the impending dread of the demon horde escaping Mars and attacking Earth, a world that is utterly unprepared for them. Another factor to consider with tone is expectations. Tone is an important tool for setting player expectations. Players don't expect demonic invasions in lighthearted adventures, or eldritch horrors that just feel lonely and want someone to talk to. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking of the shocking moment in your favorite book, game, or movie that changes the tone and makes it clear that things just got serious. But I'll caution you. Hard tonal shifts rarely work out as well as you might like. As an example, in Lord of the Rings, the tone shifts multiple times, after the hobbits leave the Shire, after Gandalf fights the Balrog, then again after the death of Boromir, and the breaking of the Fellowship. If you're planning on changing the tone, try to ease into it. Also, it's easier to start light than get dark, rather than shift from dark to a lighter tone. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest issues that affects the tone of any game, the players. There's an old meme that every D&D campaign starts as Lord of the Rings and ends as Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. And there's some truth to that. But as the DM, you have influence that you can and should use to make the game what you set out to make it. Here are a few tips for handling players and their effect on tone. The first way to control how it ends is to control how it starts. You can say no to character ideas. You don't have to have a serial killer vigilante in your campaign full of righteous heroes defeating evil. You don't have to have a prop comic bard in your gothic horror game to bust out a rubber stake when the party finally meets the vampire lord. Character creation is one of the most important events in any campaign, so go into it knowing what you want. Number 2, not all roles are possible. One of the thin excuses some players give for their shenanigans are the mechanics. Here's an example. Bard, I roll to seduce the ancient red dragon. DM, the dragon is hostile and can't be affected by your attempt to change its attitude. However, you've thoroughly distracted it. While you're checking to see if you've calculated your reflex save correctly, everyone else gets a +4 to hit on their next attack. Ridiculous scenarios aside, the referee part of being a dungeon master includes deciding what is and isn't a legal move. Some things simply can't be done. And tone is one of the factors you should consider when making those decisions. Number 3, ask your player if they actually want to do that. Sometimes giving a player time to think about their choices will cause them to change their mind. Because there's definitely a lot of ambiguity about where someone is and isn't in character and when they are and aren't joking. So if something seems like it's going against the tone of what you're trying to do, you can always ask, do you say/do that in character? Or, are you sure you want to say/do that? Number 4, how the world reacts or doesn't react to the players. This is the emergency escape button of any DM with any player actions. Although admittedly, it is easier for the world to simply ignore a silly player's antics, rather than a player being a total murder hobo and cutting the tendons of the good-hearted thief, and leaving him in the woods to get eaten by goblins. The final piece of player advice I have on the question of tone is, remember, this is a collaborative gaming and storytelling process. Communication is key. If something isn't working, or things feel off, you can always talk to the players and do retcons if necessary. Thank you very much for watching this D6 Damage video essay about what kind of game are you running. Now, if you're in the market for gaming paraphernalia, like dice, rulebooks, models, and more, check out Noble Knight Games. You'll find an affiliate link in the description of this video. And if you're interested in a good old-fashioned haunted house adventure, check out Sorceress, the Dietrich House, available right now on Drive-Thru RPG.